Good morning and happy Thursday. It's our team call, and I am here to chat with you this morning. We're going to talk a little bit about how unique you are. And if you've listened to any of our previous calls, you've probably heard us talk about strengths. So there's going to be some strengths finding involved in discovering just how amazing you are. But I want to share my screen, and that always takes me a second or two. So bear with me. So hopefully you can see a screen that says using your strengths to build an authentic business. I want you to know all of this content comes from Eddie Villa. He is a doTERRA. I don't even know, Blue Diamond. I don't know what his rank is, but his wife, Angela Villa, found doTERRA first. And of course, she fell in love with the oils, started building a business, and then he soon followed suit. But just to give you a little bit of background, they were attending a leadership event. Bobby and I, my sister and I, were both at that leadership event, and they had brought in, doTERRA had brought in a speaker from Gallup, so from right here up in Omaha, to talk about strengths and how strengths could be used in our businesses. And when Eddie heard this, he rolled his eyes because he thought, oh no, another assessment. And his wife kind of elbowed him. Well, anyway, long story short, Eddie Villa took the assessment, and that started him on a journey of really self discovery as well as becoming, I would say, an expert in our strengths and how we can use those not only in our business, but in our personal life and our relationships in our daily living. So pretty darn amazing. But I have participated in a couple of his calls and listened, and I gleaned some things that really excites me, and hopefully it excites you as well. So we're just going to get started. The very first thing I want to ask you um, is, have you taken your strengths assessment? I work at a church, and I think it was probably coming up on 4 years ago. Each one of us on staff was offered the opportunity to find out our top five. There's actually 34 strengths or talents that are known. This was put together by, it's called the Clifton Strengths Finder. I can't remember what his first name is, but just after research and research and research, he discovered this. And so anyway, as a staff member, I took my strengths, and my strengths are, just so you know, strategic, futuristic, belief. I have those two reversed, connectedness, and relator. This is going to come into play in just a moment. So hang on, got to see if I can advance my slides. So if you are interested, and I really encourage everybody to invest in themselves in learning this, you can take the Clifton Strengths Finders. It's 1950, you can see on the screen, but if you just go to, I actually just Googled Clifton Strengths, but you land on the site, click where it says products up at the top, and then you want to click what's called assessments, and then this screen will come up, and you can choose the one that you want to take. But I'm going to tell you, I'd known my top five, but by understanding my top 34, I've really changed the way I think about some things. So before we go a whole lot deeper, what gets in your way? I was watching, I think it was on Hulu or I don't know, one of those paid subscriptions. There was several different short clips about different Olympians. And so I was flipping through all of them. I think I watched maybe 10 or 15. They were anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes. Fantastic. I can't remember if it was Hulu. It might have been YouTube. Anyway, if you can find them, they're really engaging and intriguing. But what I want you to know is Olympian Simone Biles. Now, this was before the Olympics started. She was interviewed, and wow, they showed some of her tricks. Absolutely frighteningly crazy, if you ask me. But she said something that I'm paraphrasing this, but this is what I internalized to have heard her say. I am afraid to hesitate because if I do, I would get killed. Now, we know what has happened through the Olympics, and I feel greatly for her. You know, she has a lot of weight on her shoulders, having been and she still is, an amazing, awesome gymnast. But when she made that statement, it really kind of struck with me. And then I've read some articles since about, I think they're called the twisties. So, yeah, that mind that gets in the way, right? So, where are you hesitating, and is fear causing you to stop? So, hesitation comes when there's something that you want to do, but you doubt being who you are is going to be enough or it's going to work. Are you there? Do you have those kind of experiences and those kinds of feelings where you don't feel like you have what it takes to do whatever it is you want to accomplish, and that keeps you limited? Well, guess what? You are enough, and I'm hoping that you see this. So what is so awesome about you? Get ready to be wowed by the you that you are. So this is why I was so excited to tell you this, because there are currently 7.7 billion people on the planet. This is what we know, right? 1 in 280,000 is the chances that someone who takes the Clifton's assessment has the same top 5 as you, but in a different order. That equates to there's 27,500 people on the planet that have the same top 5, but in a different order. Then the chances that someone like you has the same top 5 in the exact same order is 1 in 33 million. That is insane, right? So there's 233.33 people on the planet who fall into that category. They have the same top 5 in the same order. Are you starting to see something? You are different than anyone living on the planet, and I want to encourage you to live into that difference. But here's where it's really insane. 1 in 968 million, and you can read the rest there, is the chances that someone has the same top 6 as you in the same order. And then the chances that anybody currently living on the planet having the same top 7 in the same order is more than 1 in 8 billion. Are you starting to see how unique you are? Well, let's keep going. There are 109 billion people who have ever been on the planet. 131 billion are the amount who they're projecting will have been on the planet by 2050. The chances that anyone else ever living currently or who has ever lived in the past having the exact same 34 strengths as you in the exact same order is more than 1 to 131 billion. Are you starting to see how different you are? You are different. You are unique than anyone that's ever been on this planet or anyone who ever will be on this planet. I like to say you were born into this generation because there's a circle of influence that was designed for you to reach. So, I just said, you were born in this generation to do great things that nobody else can do because they're not you. So how does that make you feel? We no longer need to try to up level our bottom strengths, and they're still strengths. My number 34, I think, is empathy. It's still a strength, but we get to live into our top strengths. We get to live into our authentic us. So what do your top 10 strengths or your top 5 strengths do for you? Actually, your top 10 strengths do for you. This is where your energy is the highest. This is where you have an influence on others. You're creative, you're productive, and you connect with other people. Isn't that cool? And that's where we're comfortable. And there have been so many times when I'm trying to live out of my weaknesses or my lesser strengths, if you will, and I feel like a fish out of water. I feel super duper uncomfortable. And then what are your bottom 5 strengths? They do pretty much the opposite. They drain you of your energy. You're not very influential when you try to live in that manner. You're not very creative. You lack productivity. Remember, it takes me back to that fear causing hesitation. And it's not a great way for me to connect with others. So I just want to show you when you take your top 34 strengths. First of all, this is mine, by the way. And this is where I'm going to tie this back to the beginning of the conversation. But understand, one is not better than another. And sometimes we can get jealous of somebody else's strengths, but we don't need to do that because you are unique And you were created to do things only you can do with your strengths. So once you've taken the strengths assessment, you're going to be able to glean some really powerful truths. And I'm not going to take a deep dive into what all of these do. When you are at the Clifton Strengths Finder, they actually give a great explanation. And then I want you to know that at doTERRA has really implemented strengths in cultivating and building leaders. And so there's actually called an Empowered You section on doTERRA's website where they've created a video that goes with every single one of our strengths. So it's really pretty cool. But I wanted to tell you, go back to my top strengths. So here they are. Hopefully you can see them. Actually, you probably can't because I'm sharing my screen, so I'm sorry. But what I want you to notice is strategic is my number one and futuristic is my number three. And so therefore, I've been trying to function as a strategic thinker. Now, I know that those are strengths and I know that I can capitalize on those. But do you see across the top, executing, influencing, relationship building, and strategic thinking? These are 4 domains that these strengths fall under. And by only knowing my top 5, I was feeling like strategic was my main domain that I should be focusing on in growth. And then my next one is relationship building. And I already know that. I like to do things with people. I like to encourage people. And that's where I have 2 of my top 5. But when I opened it up and did my top 34, you can see 4 of my top 10 are in influencing. And I have never thought that I was an influencer. How incredible is that? So, what is a domain? It's the space in which you do everything your way, and there's 4 of them. There's relationship building, there's influencing, there's strategic thinking, and there's executing. So here's something kind of interesting. When our staff at the time took this assessment, we had 0 executors. And so that is really challenging in a church when you're trying to implement all the ideas that the strategic thinkers are coming up with, or the ideas that the influencers are trying to come up with. So without executors, things really might not get done. So have you ever felt like you weren't living your authentic self? I mentioned this earlier. Maybe you felt like a square peg being forced into a round hole. Well, I have felt that before. And now when I have those feelings, I take some time to reflect upon my strengths and who I was created to be. I don't have to be anybody but me. And so how can this translate into our business? Sometimes we talk about duplicating ourselves. We hear about duplicatable. What we've learned today is that you're not designed to be duplicatable. You cannot be duplicatable. We want to duplicate systems, picking up the phone, having those conversations, inviting people to class, those pipes that we've talked about in the past: prepare, invite, present, enroll, and then support. So we duplicate the system, but we do it our way. And that's what's really, really cool. So this is something that I've talked about a couple weeks ago, but I just want to reiterate it because this is where we really get to unleash our strengths in light of our business. But remember, this can be applied to family, to the workplace, in your personal relationships, your friendships. It translates into so many spaces because if it's really who we are, we get to function in all these different roles and spaces. So when we've identified our 2 dominant domains, we select the phrases that complete this sentence. I love to do everything in a way that honors my desire to. And so when we do that, this is how we get to live out our life. So for me, I love to do everything in a way that honors my desire to move people forward and connect with the right people. And I can look back historically through my life and think about, like, I don't like doing things by myself. I love to empower people with solutions. When people are drawn to wanting to change something, I'd like to help them find that change in that pathway. So here's where we get to take this a step further, where we can place this in light of our business. So these are just some suggestions. When you finish them, finish these statements in the way that you were designed to function. So I love to find builders in a way that honors my desire to move people forward and connect with the right people. That feels good to me. I love to teach classes in a way that honors my desire to move people forward and connect with the right people. I love to sample others in a way that honors my desire to move people forward and connect with the right people. So when you've identified your domains, then you get to figure out, you get to add those two statements onto whatever it is you want to do. I get to love my family in a way that honors my desire to move people forward and connect with the right people. Um, so I want you to take some time. I hope you'll go back and take that assessment. But the last thing we get to do is create a strengths proclamation by focusing in on the details of our top 10 strengths. So just like I mentioned, when you're at Clifton, or if you go to doterra.com and look up Empowered You, when you know your strengths, read the description of that strength and pull out some keywords that resonate with your heart. And from there, that's where you're going to create your proclamation. And I want you to understand this isn't a quick process, it's work and it takes time. I haven't completely landed on mine. I shared one a couple weeks ago and I've still been tweaking it as I resonate with it. It takes time, it takes reflection, and it takes revision. It's really hard work to find the true you. Remember, there's 1 in 131 billion people. You are 1 in 131 billion people. And so that one, that you who's on this planet, you're here to make a difference in the world. Once your proclamation feels good and it connects with your heart and your mind, I want you to save it. I want you to post it on your wall, put it on your refrigerator, put it on your mirror, put it in on a card, in your purse, in your back pocket, read it off and memorize it. And then go unleash your strengths to live into the person you were created to be and have an impact into the world. I want you to know Eddie Vila has a great podcast. I will share the link in the comments below this call. He also has a 90-day planner. I just purchased it. It hasn't arrived yet, so I'm curious to find out what's more in there, or what's in there that can continue to help me grow in developing who I am. But I want to encourage all of us to really live into who we were created to be, because then we don't have to be anybody but us. And when we live into that authentic self, we really can do some great things in this world. So I hope you enjoyed the call today. Please share your comments, your thoughts. Eddie Villa, he's got his book is Unleash Your Strengths. I think that's the name of his podcast. You could Google that too. But I would encourage you to check that out. Check out Empowered You at doterra.com. And I'm really glad that you are who you are.